Moments with Mark. We're in chapter 3 of the Gospel of Mark, starting with verse 7. Focuses on the 12 apostles. Jesus went out to the lake with his disciples, and a large crowd followed him. They came from all over Galilee, Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, from east of the Jordan River, and even from as far north as Tyre and Sidon. The news about his miracles had spread far and wide, and vast numbers of people came to see him. Jesus instructed his disciples to have a boat ready so the crowd would not crush him. He had healed many people that day, so all the sick people eagerly pushed forward to touch him. And whenever those possessed by evil spirits caught sight of him, the spirits would throw them to the ground in front of him, shrieking, "You are the Son of God." But Jesus sternly commanded the spirits not to reveal who he was. Afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain and called out the ones he wanted to go with him, and they came to him. Then he appointed 12 of them and called them his apostles. They were to accompany him, and he would send them out to preach, giving them authority to cast out demons. These are the 12 he chose: Simon, whom he named Peter, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but Jesus nicknamed them sons of thunder, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed him. One time Jesus entered a house, and the crowds began to gather again. Soon he and his disciples couldn't even find time to eat. When his family heard what was happening, they tried to take him away. "He is out of his mind," they said. Verses 7 through 21, Mark chapter 3. Today, this passage focuses on Jesus and his 12 apostles. The beginning of this passage describes the appointment of the 12 apostles. We break down this passage for 3 words: messengers, ministry, and misunderstanding. Let's take the first one. Messengers. Jesus called disciples. Disciples were followers, students, learners. Anybody could be a disciple of Jesus. But then it tells us that in verse 14, they were 12 of them that were called apostles, that he appointed. Anybody could follow, but Jesus specifically appointed 12 to be apostles. The word disciple means follower, student, learner. The word apostle simply means one that is sent, ambassador, a messenger of Jesus. And we know those 12 as the 12 apostles. The apostles were disciples, but there were more disciples than apostles. And so they were called by Jesus, and they were set apart for a great work of teaching others and extending the message and ministry of Jesus. So they were his messengers. But Jesus also in this passage defines his ministry. We see the work of Jesus' ministry as well as the apostles' ministry. It says they were to be with Christ. He wanted these 12 to be with him, to be almost like apprentices after him. They were to be with Christ. They were to be sent out to preach, the verse says. They were to have authority to drive out demons. They were to know Jesus, and they were to do good. They were to preach and to teach, and they were to battle evil wherever they found it. In verse 13, Jesus wanted the apostles to go with him, to be with him. They were to accompany him, keep a close communion with Christ. They were to be with him, and they would study him, they would copy him, they would drink in his spirit, and they would walk in his steps. That was the ministry of Jesus and the ministry of his apostles, and should be the ministry of all disciples. We should want to be with Jesus, to follow him, to commune with him. Verse 14 says, "Then he sent them out to preach." Like the apostles, we ought to share the good news of Jesus wherever opportunity arises. Verse 8 and verse 10 tells us that Jesus and his disciples healed the sick. Like the apostles, we must do good in our world. We must help with compassionate hands and a loving heart. In verse 11 and verse 15, they were to cast out demons. Like the apostles, we must oppose every work of the devil wherever we find it. We must battle evil wherever we find it. It's the part of the battle of the Christian in this world, is to do good and to be good, but also to battle evil. The responsibility of pastors and ministers is a great one. I want to encourage you to pray for your pastor, pray for his family. Most pastors, in the devil's eyes, are marked. The devil tries to get the leader to get off track, to fall, to fail. Pray for your pastor, pray for your church, pray for ministers that you know, because the battle is not easy. How much they need your prayers. Matter of fact, St. Paul says several times in his letters to the churches in the New Testament, pray for us. So pray for your minister, pray for your pastor, pray for your church. So we've seen the messengers of Jesus. We see the ministry of Jesus defined in these verses. But we also see at the end of these verses that we read, in verse 20, 21, that Jesus was misunderstood. A lot of times in ministry and in serving Jesus, people will misunderstand you. You will be misunderstood. We are told that they went to take hold of Jesus and they said, "He is out of his mind," verse 21. The church and Christ followers will often be misunderstood by the unchurched or the unconverted. We may be misunderstood by unchurched family members. We may be misunderstood by unconverted friends. But let me encourage you to press on. Keep following Jesus. As we used to say back in the early 70s, keep on trucking. Keep moving forward in your spiritual journey. Keep following Jesus, no matter what the world says, no matter what your critics say. Focus and live for Jesus day in and day out, and you'll be blessed. Your heart will be full and satisfied and content. Be a messenger of Jesus. Do the ministry of Jesus. And even through misunderstanding, serve Jesus.